Welcome to It Takes Two. I'm Blair.
I'm Chris.
And today we'll be talking about Couples Therapy, Season 4, Episodes 10 and 11.
Listen here, we have reviewed Couples Therapy, I think it was last year. Make sure y'all go back and check out that playlist. This is a continuation of that season. You ready for this, Blair?
I'm ready.
Subscribe, like, share, comment, all the above. Let's go.
All right. So we start with Rod and Allison, who have been married for 18 years. They have both been in individual therapy, and this is their first time in couples therapy.
Okay.
They talk about how they have a 10-year-old daughter, and when they argue, she ends up becoming the moderator. They are older parents, so it's kind of mixed. They talk about when it comes to the children in her school, the younger parents versus older parents.
Mm-hmm.
Orna asks, is this an argument? Because he's of the belief that most of the parents in the school are younger. She believes it's mixed. And the way that they're talking to each other, it comes off a little hostile. Mm-hmm. But they both are just kind of like, we know, we have a tone. This is how we talk. But no, we're not in an argument right now.
Yeah.
Allison says they don't really have much patience for each other. She says that he doesn't have patience for the daughter or her. And he says that he has patience for their daughter.
Mm-hmm.
He says that the other part that they argue about is finances. He works. She's a stay-at-home mom. She was in the fashion industry, but when they had a child, she decided to give up her career. At this point, she's resenting it a little bit. She's kind of lost in her identity. Mm-hmm. And now that her daughter's older, she's questioning herself and her decisions as far as what she's done with her career and her life up to this point.
Yeah.
We learned that her dad passed away recently. He also had dementia before he passed. Mm-hmm. And since the passing, the communication between them has gotten worse. He says Allison's patience is at a 0. She acknowledges that's true and she's working on it. It's a behavior that she learned from her father. She's threatened divorce often. It makes him quiet down, try to protect himself emotionally, and she's just looking for him to give her something, and it's just not there. She's at a point where she's just feeling a little bit lost in her life.
First impression on this couple, Blair.
Yeah.
Yours.
My first impression was, at first I was just kind of like, okay, maybe this is just a very New York couple. We know this takes place in New York. The tone is a little bit sharp, but they said they weren't arguing. But I think that when it comes to their communication style, if you guys are in a good place, then maybe it's not so offensive. But if you guys are in a bad place, then maybe it'll start to cause more of an argument, the way that you guys talk to each other. Then when she started talking about the loss of her father, her kind of being at this like crux in her life between what she did before versus now as a mother and what she wanted for her career. I'm just thinking like, okay, is she just frustrated with her life and she's taking it out on him?
Yes.
Because, or are there things that he could improve on when it comes to communication and being there for her in order for her to feel a little bit more solid in her place in life? But at the end of the day, whether you have a partner who's been with you for a long time or not, I mean, you have to provide your own peace. Is how I feel.
My first impression was that that this is a very, I don't want to use the word hostile, but they are very animated. Right? Animated, even with their emotions. And I listened specifically to what he was saying, right? And he said something across the lines of, hey, I don't have patience for her. I have patience for our daughter, but I don't really have patience for you. And if I was to translate from a guy perspective, what I think he meant is like, hey, when my child acts like a child, I can deal with that. I can't deal when my partner, someone who is an equal, acts like a child. I don't really have patience for it. We're going to learn more about this couple throughout the season and things like that. But I could just tell just off the strength of he is working and she is not. And she is having a hard time with her identity as she gets older, as her child gets older. And then on top of that, her father passed away. So that's even more of an identity crisis in some matter, because at that point, you will never be a daughter to your father anymore. So now you are picking up on your father traits. You are keeping him alive by having some of his toxic traits and stuff like that in the house.
Right.
And I think while she's going through this midlife, whatever it is, crisis, to where she don't know who she is. Being a mother at one point was enough. Now it's not enough, because you are an older mother and you may be around younger mothers and you may see them being a mother while they going to work and while they doing all these other things. And the thing about New York is a hustle town, right? It's a hustle city. So a lot of the time, I can imagine if you are living in the city of New York, which I don't think they do, but let's just say they live in the city, there's not a lot of people who are really just cool with just staying in one place, staying like, idle. I'm a stay-at-home mom. Usually people got a lot of things going. It's a town to where you get things done and get things moving. And I wonder if it is some of the regret and some of the resentment that she is feeling off of her decisions, and now she's kind of putting it on her husband, because she probably feel like that's what a husband's supposed to do. A husband's supposed to bear the weight of whatever I feel, of my emotions, of basically why did you allow me to quit my job and things like that. But this is just the first introduction to them, and I was like, just off top, I feel like a lot of it have to do with her being at home and her resenting the life that she has now because of the decisions she made in the past.
So then we move on to Boris and Jessica, who have been together for 8 years.
Yeah.
He describes them as aliens to each other. And it's weird that they're aliens to each other, because externally they've gotten to a place of stability in their life. They got married, moved around to different states and cities with 2 kids. She was always happy in New York, and he wanted to move. We learned that his parents were immigrants from the USSR. They moved to New York, and it was always a feeling of unsafe, being unwanted in their neighborhood and where they were in New York. So the next place, like, he always had in his mind that he wanted to pursue a place to where he would feel safe and at home. We learned that she is a psychotherapist, and it was hard for her moving around a lot with trying to grow her career, gain her clients and everything. He's not really feeling happy because they're back in New York. He's feeling trapped. She says most of the moves were to facilitate his need, his pursuit for whatever piece he was looking for. And her stuff was on the back burner. At this point, it's supposed to be her turn, but now it's being eroded by the fact that he's not happy with where they are, and it's causing instability in their relationship, in their home, which is where she also works. She's become afraid of leaving her office, because when they encounter each other in the house, he just starts going off about all the things that he's unhappy with.
Wow.
He's constantly reciting how New York feels opposite of what the family needs. And if it were him and his partner was unsatisfied, he would have said, let's pack up and move. Let's go wherever you want to go. She was talking about how they were living in Montana before. And when they were in Montana, she wanted to get out and to leave, but they stayed there for 2 years. And she says that she was not doing well. And he told her, he was all right. I disagree with that narrative. I think you were fine. And then she's like, oh, I was doing so great. I was doing wonderful in Montana. And he was like, that's what I hate. Now you're being sarcastic. And she's like, I'm getting frustrated because you're telling me how I felt. And I'm telling you I was not okay in Montana. He doesn't know how they can live together with the way that they want their homes to feel. They both want their homes to feel something different.
Here's the thing, right? Based off of what you just read, based on what we saw in that episode, it does come off on the surface that, hey, bruh, when it's not your turn, it's not your turn. We have been doing, what's the word? We have been on this pursuit of you trying to find peace, of you trying to feel safe. And if you was doing a good job at it, we wouldn't have been moving so much.
Right.
So now that we actually land in New York from Montana or like whatever, and now you're trying to take the wheel again. Well, whole time when you had the wheel, we wasn't doing good anyway. So in a way, I can see 100% from her perspective in the whole idea of, hey, this is my career. It's kind of hard for me to build my clients when I'm constantly moving, right? Also, like when it's my turn, you are telling me that, hey, you wasn't doing so bad in Montana. When she said out her mouth that, hey, I'm not doing good, and then you go be like, you was doing okay, you was doing fine, and then when she's sarcastic, you're like, I hate that. Well, you was the one that robbed her of her experience when she said that out of her mouth in the first place. If you would have been quiet, you wouldn't have hated what what
happened.
Exactly. But I think a lot of the time, maybe what he did in the whole dismissing her feelings, dismissing basically her place in the marriage, maybe that is the main character of their issues right there, because he wants to feel safe. And the thing about it is, if you are, I wonder, because not unfortunately, but you know, I'm from the United States of America and things like that. I wonder, are you chasing something that you just not gonna feel? Like it's part of being an immigrant, and please let us know. It's part of being an immigrant is knowing that, hey, like, this is not home, and I have to work and work and work and work to make sure that I have some roots somewhere, that, you know, you have some people that come here to get their education, and they basically built their life here, knowing that it will never be home, meaning that it will never feel like home. It will never be home. It will never be safe and things like that. But I will say, outside of him ignoring her feelings, I will say the state of New York, the city of New York, can also play the main character in their problems too. If New York is a place to where the city will make you or it will break you. And if you're not made for New York and things of that nature, I can see how he would feel trapped, because for one, it's not cheap to live there, and it's a city that's basically like it's supposed to make and break you, basically. What are your thoughts?
Okay, so y'all know I'm not a therapist. I just play pretend on YouTube, especially when we get to couples therapy. I love this show because I can put my fake therapist hat on, and I can try to sit next to Orna and try to pretend to do what she do.
I'm a therapist.
But she's amazing at what she does. I wouldn't be able to do it. But when I listen to their story, and he also talked about how he had like a creative writing position, but that didn't end up going through because of all the different places that they were moving and stuff like that. So to me, I'm just like, he's giving very much unsettled. Yeah. And I think that part of it could come from being an immigrant background and possibly seeing how hard his family had to work to like make a life for themselves in America. And now he's saying that he wants to move out and just try to find, like, basically it sounds like he's trying to find a community that accepts and loves him and his family. Yeah. And I think that honestly, and I'm just looking at it from my perspective as a Black woman in America, a lot of places we are not accepted. Okay. A lot of places we have to cultivate a community in order to find a space of safety and happiness for us and our families, especially histories of slavery, Jim Crow, all these different things. Throughout history, we've had to create a bubble for ourselves in order to feel that, because you step out of that bubble, you hit the real world, and then you're faced with all the prejudices and racism that are out there. Okay. And so when I look at him and that he's looking for this type of external validation from the country or whatever city he's moving to make him feel this way, I kind of think to myself, he's going to be the one to have to create that for himself and his family. And I don't really know if he knows that. And I would think, and you guys from immigrant families, you can definitely weigh in. I think that from his parents, which we haven't really gotten into it, it's kind of a thing of, did your parents create community for you, or were they kind of just working to put food on the table in order for you to survive? And you never really got the opportunity to have that community that you're looking for. So I think that in these couple relationships, that at first glance, you can kind of see who's kind of in the fault, right? Like who's kind of weighing down the situation. Okay. But I do think that with her at this point, she is doing everything that she can to accommodate his needs. But at the end of the day, you guys ended up moving back to New York and he's miserable. And so I think that she tried to give him the space to see, okay, you say you'll be happy if we do all these things. Was he happy when y'all were doing that? You know what I'm saying? I'm just like, I don't think so. Because I'm just like, the way that it's coming across, y'all did all these things, y'all moved all these places, but at the end of the day, wherever you go, that's where you will be. And whatever issues he has in inadequacy or feeling unsafe and unwelcomed, that's something I feel like he has to work out individually, so that no matter where he lives, he can create a space like that for himself and his family. But I will agree with you, New York is a tough city. I wouldn't want to live there personally. Nothing against New York, specifically, but it's just kind of like it's just very busy, a lot of concrete, and all that type of stuff. But I just feel like if New York isn't the city for them, like, is there a place there to where they could find a happy medium?
But I find it very interesting because I'm like, if there's a city that has a lot of immigrants, it is New York. Like,
and I would think he could find a community there.
He definitely can. So that's why the only thing I have basically to go off of what they had in this scene is that she said, hey, when it's my turn, you are kind of trying to take the wheel. And you're trying to basically ruin my experience when it's my turn. And my thing is this. Okay, his response was, well, I would think that if my partner tell me that I don't feel safe or I don't feel at home, that I would be like, well, let's get up and move. No.
It's like you want to do that anyway.
I'm like, you've been doing that.
Right.
And that's why we're in the position that we're in now, that we landed in New York. Going from Montana to New York is a culture shock. But I will say, do not try to make it seem like you have a plan where basically we've been moving and moving and moving based off of how you've been feeling, and we haven't landed in a place to where you feel good. We wouldn't be in this position if we would have just went with your plan and it actually worked, but it didn't work. So now I'm going to try and I'm going to live here in New York. You know what I'm saying? And guess what? I have no problem with that.
So we move on to Kyle and Mondo. They've been together for 6 years. We learned that Kyle is deaf. He found out actually when his family moved to America when he was 8. Apparently, it took so long for him to find out because his mom was just in denial. She wanted to have a hearing son. She really didn't get him access to services for people who were deaf. So it was a lot of him just kind of learning to read people's mouths and had to figure out everything on his own. So he actually found his community within the gay community. With COVID, face masks, it was hard for him because he couldn't read people's lips. Mondo struggles because he doesn't want to feel like the parent in the relationship, the responsible one all the time. We learned that his mom passed during COVID. He was thrusted into the adult role in his family, and it changed a lot of his relationships with people. Mondo is feeling anxiety around opening up their relationship, which Kyle wants to open it up. He wants to have sexual relations with other men to explore that part of his life, and he will not accept monogamy. And Kyle says, I don't like to be contained. If it was up to Mondo, they wouldn't open up the relationship. It just seems less messy to be monogamous. But because this is something that Kyle wants to explore within his identity, Mondo has to be flexible. And he wants to understand like why this is so important to Kyle.
Let's start from the top with this, right? Because this couple always shows itself in every season of couples therapy, no matter if it's a heterosexual couple or not. One person want to be open, the other person does not. You get what I'm saying? And they choose to stay in the relationship, which is kind of weird, right? So let's start off with Kyle. He is deaf, right? He did not sign to us that he's deaf. He's talking to us, and he's saying he's deaf. Even Orna was like, huh? Excuse me? You're deaf. So basically, from the beginning, from when he was a child, he had a problem with identity, right? That was forced upon him by his mother, right? He was a deaf kid, and his mother was basically saying, you're not a deaf kid. So off top, his identity on how he can fit in, on the tools that would actually give the tools that he needed to equip him for the world was not given to him. Correct. I don't know if he knows sign language based on what the story he was telling us. When COVID happened and the mask was on people's faces, it looked like he goes by reading people's lips, right? So he is not equipped to deal with his true identity, and that is a deaf person, right? So off top right then and there, I think there's some confusion off top right there. And the confusion comes in that I don't understand why, and I'm talking to Mondo and Kyle, why is it so hard to break apart and be single, right? When, hey, I want to be monogamous, I don't want to be monogamous. I would think that would be one of the main reasons of, hey, this can't work. Yeah. You get what I'm saying? But at the same time, there is something to, hey, Kyle knows that Mondo, in a way, that he take care of me, he watches after me, he accepts me and things of that nature. So it's kind of like I put the ball in Mondo's court, right? Because Kyle is basically saying, this is what I want. And you said it out your mouth in this session right here, Mondo, that you don't really want it. So if you don't want it, the power is not back in Kyle's hands. It's in your hands to make a decision. Then what are you going to do? What is your thoughts?
Yeah, I think my thoughts on this are that when you're in a relationship with somebody, you guys have to agree on what you guys want for the relationship. And it sounds like they're not agreeing on what they want for the relationship. Kyle wants to not be monogamous, and Mondo sounds like he wants to be monogamous, but he doesn't want to lose Kyle, so he's willing to try to bend in order to make Kyle happy. And that's how you end up in therapy because you don't want the relationship dynamic that you're currently in, but you still want to be with that person. And I honestly feel like if you guys don't want the same thing, then you need to separate and find somebody who wants what you want. Now, when it comes to Kyle and him exploring his sexuality and all of this type of stuff, I feel like that's a place for you to be single unless you can be with somebody who's comfortable with an open relationship, which Mondo is not. So I think that maybe Kyle needs to break up with Mondo, seeing that this isn't working, for him to explore and have the fun that he wants to, and then from there see if he wants to have a monogamous relationship. But I guess, you know, I am in a monogamous relationship, so I kind of view it from that perspective, but I can recognize that there are all different types of relationships, and if you are with somebody who is comfortable with the type of relationship that you guys agree to be a part of, then you guys can make it work however you make it work. But I am of the belief that monogamy is a lot less messy. And I think that Mondo is about to accept a lot of things that he doesn't want to accept into his life. I think he's probably going to feel some anxiety, some insecurity. I mean, a lot of different things that he probably, on top of the death of his mother and the role that he's currently playing in his family, it might be too much for him. So
I understand that Mondo said that, hey, being a parent in a relationship, basically taking care of somebody, it's not fun. He just want to be a partner. But I think Kyle have deeper issues that is very important to dig deep into, and we're only in the first and second episode. But I wonder, okay, the mother wanted a son that hears, okay, sure.
And
right?
she just pretended like
pretended as if he could, right?
That's crazy.
And I wonder what trauma was grown from that. I wonder if she accepts him as her gay son, because here's the thing about it. He said he don't want to be contained. So when I hear that, I'm just thinking like, okay, you're deaf, but you was told that you're not deaf, so we're not gonna put that title on you, right? You're in a monogamous relationship, but you know what? I don't like that type of title. I don't want to be basically just to one person. I want to be a free bird, because basically your mother, in her ill attempt to try to make you normal, you get what I'm saying, kind of made you hate titles, kind of make you hate being in a box. And really the box that you needed was to support you, not to contain you,
to get you the resources,
to give you the resources. So now when you say I don't want to be contained, it's almost as if you are saying like, you know what, I'm even though I will not. You get what I'm saying? And we're going to learn something about Kyle, because I'm going to be on Kyle's next episode and things of that nature. But I put the full responsibility on Mondo, because he made his request on what he don't want to do and what he wants to do, Kyle, that is. And Mondo, it's your choice to actually be an adult and say, well, I don't want to do that, and I think this is where we go our separate ways.
Yeah. So we do have like a segment where Orna is kind of talking, sharing some perspective on things. She says people tend to avoid real communication. Yeah. There is a thing of a signal, and then there's noise. People can talk about nothing, bicker endlessly, or obsess over something that doesn't matter, just to fill the space to make a connection, but they are nowhere real. But Orna is trained to move from noise to signal. And I feel like we see that a lot during these couples therapy conversations, to where people kind of get lost in the weeds of their issues in the conversations and start, like she said, bickering back and forth with each other, to where you guys aren't even looking for a solution anymore. No. Like you are looking for a reaction, or you're looking for a response, so that way you can feel something from that person. So moving on, we meet Nick and Katherine. They have been together for 14 years. We learned that they did an ayahuasca retreat together in Costa Rica. Okay. So during the retreat, they separate them to different sides of the room, and she could hear him in distress. It was hard for her because she feels like he's been in distress for a lot of their relationship. Okay. Nick says it feels like he found a lot of grief and pain during that experience. He's not really fully ready to disclose everything like behind the feelings of what happened, but his mom did pass away 5 years ago. She had Parkinson's and some other undetectable illnesses that the doctors couldn't figure out what they were.
Yeah.
She held a lot of sadness, and he thinks he absorbed some of that.
Okay.
Catherine says that he had a lot of anger towards his mom as well, so he didn't let himself feel the sadness until the retreat, and he's the type to open up and then he closes up again.
Okay.
We learned that his dad was the caretaker and there wasn't a relationship anymore. It was more of a caretaker. There was no love there.
Okay.
And Catherine fears that they will end up being on their own islands and there won't be any love there anymore in their relationship. And Orna says Nick and Katherine are both avoidants. There's a lot of sadness and grief in Nick. It's like he wants to put something out there, but he's not ready to say it.
Yeah.
But in order to actually, get past issues, you have to open up and work it out.
Yeah. Here's the thing about it. I am not a fan of those type of retreats and things like that. I think it's more noise if we go by what Orna was talking about, in the sense of, hey, how people communicate. People really, to paraphrase, people are not really good at communicating. They're good at just making noise, and you got to go through all the noise to really get to like the real issue. Here's the thing about it. This is therapy, brother.
Right.
I understand you're sad, and there's really no point in coming and joining a session if you're not going to be open, right? And the whole point of therapy is, hey, when you open it up, I'm not going to open it up for you. I have all the tools to open it up for you. And if that was the case, I do that for every patient, right? But the whole point of therapy is that I equip you with the tools. So when you have another issue like this 14 years down the line and things of that nature, you will have the tools to actually deal with it, right? And the thing about it is, I understand his mother passed away. I understand that he said that when it came down to his parents, that when she got sick, there wasn't love there, that he kind of went into the caretaker role. I want to know, what does he mean by that in the sense of the definition? Because maybe love looked different than what it did before he was in the caretaker role. You get what I'm saying? His dad, yes. And I'm saying, hey, if you view them in a relationship and then one person gets sick and then the other parent is taking care of the other, love looks differently. Like I'm taking care of them. You get what I'm saying? Their life depends on me. So I wonder, how is he viewing the world? Is his vision of the world, or even the vision of his own feelings, 2020, or is it kind of distorted to where he is basically putting a definition and even describing things to where it may not have been? You get what I'm saying? Especially, and I understand, when a parent passes away, a part of you dies with them. You get what I'm saying? So even him saying that he feels like he absorbed some of the sadness and things like that, some of the grief and things like that, dealing with his mother passing and things like that, that can happen, I guess. But my thing about it is, we can't talk about it. You have to talk about it. You have to open it up. And you kind of put yourself in your marriage, kind of like, you're kind of doing disservice to your marriage, because she can't help you because you're not really being clear in your communication. And even in this session here, he's kind of doing peekaboo with his feelings. He's saying like, yeah, this is what happened, but I kind of don't want to touch it. I'm like, then why bring it up? You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. When it came to them, I kind of was just observing, because I didn't feel like there was much for me to go off of to really understand what their issue was. Yeah. And what I was observing was, when they were talking about the ayahuasca thing, he was saying that he was feeling the sadness in his body. It was a lot in his legs. The people really couldn't get it out of his legs. And it wasn't really pinpointing any specific situations or issues that are holding them up.
You're right.
And it sounded more like a need for an individual session than a couple session, because what is wrong between y'all? You know what I'm saying? But another thing I noticed is that because Nick wasn't fully opening up or feeling comfortable opening up, Katherine was doing a lot of explaining for him. Yeah. And with that, I think that, of course, you know your partner, so you can tell their story. But I think it's important for him to tell his story in the way that he saw and experienced it. So that way, Orna and us as the audience can get an understanding of like what his experience was, because Katherine can run down the list of you were mad at your mom and this is what happened and this was the dynamic and all this different type of stuff, and it's just like, okay, yes, that does add context, but Nick, we need you to tell us from your peer view. We need to know, like, how do you respond emotionally? What does your body's reaction do while you're telling the story, so we can feel where you're coming from versus a rundown of a situation. You get what I'm saying?
And like I said, to your point with that retreat, which I'm not a fan of, right? Sadness and feelings and emotions not supposed to come out your legs.
Okay.
So like all this whole thing of you trying to use your body to not talk, to basically face what you really feel, and actually to communicate what you really feel, because you're like, they couldn't get out of my legs. It's not supposed to come out your legs. Okay. Talk. You get what I'm saying? And to your point, hey, guess what? She can't talk for you. And that's probably what you've been relying on for 14 years or part of most of the marriage, but she's not your interpreter.
Right. Okay, so we're done.
All right. Subscribe, like, share, comment, all the above. We see y'all.
Bye.